Is up, everybody? What is up? Welcome to another episode of Sports with BJ. First time, long time. I feel like I'm calling in to the Lila After Dark show. I don't know if anyone remembers that, but first time, long time. It's a pleasure to be back. It's a pleasure to have football in the air. There's just a different feel. Fall is coming. We can sense it. We're ready for it. We've got preseason football. We're in week 0 of college football. We've got a lot to talk about. A lot has happened in the sports world since the last time I've done one of these lives, right? So we've got a lot going on. We never really talked a bunch about the Olympics. Probably won't, but we didn't. Give you a timestamp of how long it's been since I've done one of these. And you hear that laughter, which means, of course, I brought on my boy, JT, JTZ4, Sports Shift Media founder, the man, the myth, the legend himself. JT, how goes it in Pennsylvania?
Oh, it's going. I'm just, it's finally football season, like you said. I'm getting ramped up. Just put out a blog today previewing some of those week 0 games. It feels like just a few years ago, there was only one game to really look forward to. Now we've got 5 games this weekend. I'm ready to sit back on my new porch and have a TV out there and just watch some college football.
Absolutely. So before we get into this is going to be a really free-flowing type of atmosphere here tonight. We don't have any agenda. We have a couple things that we might definitely want to get to, but no straight talking points, no script, no stats. This is just going to be a couple dudes chopping it up on whatever topics come to mind, preferably in the world of sports. But hey, we want to hear from you. I got you in the comments. If you want to hop into the show, let me know. We'll send you the link. We can put you in the guest room, and I'll add you in later. But we want to get a shout out to the sponsors. We're starting football season, which is always a reminder to me of the first sponsor I picked up, which was Skinny Dip, the Skinny Dip frozen yogurt bar. Owned locally, operated locally, great people. They have 3 convenient locations in our general area. That would be in Ghent, in Kempsville, and on Hanbury Road. You go in there, you mention the Sports with BJ podcast, you will get 10% off of your order. That is a lot of free froyo. Trust me, I have been doing it myself, and my stomach is showing for it. We just got back from the Outer Banks, and I have had way too much free froyo over this summer because the bathing suit was a little tight, JT. But
it happens to the best of us. It's been a rough couple of years here with everything going on. So we've all put on a few pounds.
Absolutely, it happens. But you know what? We're here. Winter is about to be here, which means Thanksgiving is going to be here. So the theory is, why go put the weight off now if you're just going to put it back on, right? I'd rather have a bigger glow up. So my goal is to not diet until next year.
January 1st, right? That's what it is every year.
That's it. That's January 21st. I'm going to start eating better. But we'll talk about that January 21st of 2023 too, probably. So hit us up in the comments, hit us up in the waiting room. We'd love to hear from you. Anything and everything you want to talk about, that's what we're here for tonight. One of the first things I wanted to get to, though, and this is, JT, you'll have some stuff to say, but the beginning of it will probably be a little bit local. So ESPN Radio, we know, has their own local affiliates, and in the afternoon, typically between the 3 and 7 o'clock hour, you'll get a little bit of a local guy who works for ESPN, but kind of keeps his pulse on the 757 or on the 434 or the 710, wherever your area code's at. Y'all know what I'm talking about. Down here in Virginia, we've got good old Nick Cattles. Nick Cattles is the bane of my existence. I have never disagreed with someone more in my entire life than I disagree with Nick Cattles. He's actually a pretty good dude. He's got a local bar here that him and his friends opened up called Tailgates. It's over in the Virginia Beach area. Really nice place to go have a drink, watch a game, especially on Sundays. They do live pools. They do all kinds of fun stuff. Off the mic, he's a pretty fun guy. Behind the mic, I just disagree with him a lot. And something that's been burning in the sports world was a clip that went viral. And I don't want to say viral. It was just a highlight that a lot of people were talking about. And that was Justin Fields getting absolutely rocked in their preseason game against the Bills this past weekend. And one of the things Nick Cattles and a lot of people have been saying is that he's going to have to learn. Justin Fields is going to have to learn to not put himself in that situation. And Nick Cattles was of the exact same opinion. Justin, welcome to the NFL, buddy. You're going to have to learn to shift your O-line protection. You're going to have to learn to do this. You're going to have to learn. And look, I agree. He's going to have a learning curve. But if you actually watch that play, what the hell are you talking about, Nick Cattles? That was what I like to call a quick read. All right. I don't know. I didn't play high level football, so I don't know the actual terminology for it, but I call it a quick read. And a quick read is where a running back is coming out of the backfield and has the potential, and we got this clip running right here. He's got the potential to have a blocking assignment, right? That's a quick read. You need to read, is this guy coming free? Do I need to chip him before I get to my route, or can I let him go, right? I don't understand how you could watch that clip right there and say that Justin Fields did anything wrong. You can tell that that play was designed where his first, second, and maybe third options are on the left side of the field. That running back is probably a bailout option, or if a blitz gets through on the other side, on the left side of the offensive line, he can roll out the opposite direction and he can hit his running back. That is what that running back's job was. He had a quick read, and his job was to hit that linebacker or that defensive end that was coming off. And if you roll that clip again, you will watch him run directly by him. Watch Justin Fields' body language. Watch Justin Fields' offensive line. The play is designed left. This dude right here in the back. What are you doing? What are you doing, my man? And I have been livid with people saying that Justin Fields what is Justin Fields supposed to do? That play is designed left. That running back had an option route where he was supposed to chip that guy before he hits the flat. You've got to know at the NFL level that if you're the third or fourth option on the backside of the play, protecting your quarterback's backside is your number one priority coming out of the backfield. You cannot rub shoulders with the linebacker blitzing your quarterback from the blind side and then go just proceed to your route. So that's the biggest thing that I took away from this past weekend that was really circulating my news feed was people blaming Justin Fields for that play. And JT, I don't know how you can watch that and blame anybody but the running back.
Yeah, and I also want to know what the play call was, because if you watch the beginning of that play, the way that it was set up, even if that is a chip by the running back, it's probably a play call that is supposed to be get the ball out of his hands quickly. And if you look at both those receivers, neither of them are running like slant routes. You would expect it like a slant, maybe a quick turnaround, try to get a quick 5 yards to set it up for third manageable. But yeah, so all around, running back has to do his job. Receivers did not do a very good job of getting open, whatever the play call was. So yeah, that is not on Justin Fields. I actually hadn't heard that. Maybe I just wasn't listening to the right radio stations. I hadn't actually heard that comment be made. But anybody who's doing that, you gotta change your thinking, because that's you're just wrong.
Yeah, so that's you, Nick Cattles. You are wrong, sir. I'd love to have you on the show. If this ever makes it to your ears and you want to come defend yourself, Sports with BJ would love to have you. You don't have to travel far. We're online. We're also locally located here in Great Bridge in the Virginia Beach area as well. So come on, Mr. Nick Cattles. I'd love to have a chat with you.
Do you know who the running back was?
I actually don't.
That is Khalil Herbert, rookie running back from Virginia Tech.
Oh, makes sense. Yeah. Saw a lot of that last year.
Yeah, not much blocking from him. He's a get the ball and go guy. He's not going to hang out in the backfield.
Absolutely. So with football coming in strong, we're right in the thick of the preseason, which means that Labor Day is upon us. That means that the start of the season's coming around the corner quick. It also means that fantasy football drafts are happening left and right. So I got to ask you, JT, who's your number one overall pick in the fantasy football this year?
Number one overall pick's definitely Christian McCaffrey. I think there is a tier that is Christian McCaffrey. A little bit below him is Dalvin Cook, but then I think there's a big drop off in that next group of running backs. I think that you could probably see, if you're in a 10-team draft, 10-team league, I think you could see 10 running backs go off the board in the first round.
Mm.
I think that's how important the position is. But that's how my mindset's always been. I think you can get deep receivers late in drafts. I think it's a much deeper position than running back. But
Do you
what's your opinion
think?
on that?
No, I would take CMC number one overall for sure. If I had the first overall pick, I don't think that there's anybody else, especially if you're in a PPR league. I
Mm-hmm.
don't know that you go anybody else other than Christian McCaffrey. Dalvin Cook's another good one, but you got to look at the way that Minnesota runs their offense. Dalvin Cook is not going to come out of the backfield often as an actual threat. Yeah, he
Mm-hmm.
might get 2 or 3 catches a game for 25, 30 yards. And sure, that'll get you a good 6 points, but he's not going to be as pass heavy as Christian McCaffrey is. The thing that I worry about with taking my number one draft pick and using it on Christian McCaffrey is I don't know what's going to happen with Sam Darnold, right? Is Sam Darnold, we still don't know. We haven't had enough on Sam Darnold to know if it was the Jets organization as a whole not drafting well around him and keeping him upright, or if Sam Darnold is actually just not good in the NFL. We
Mm-hmm.
don't know that, right? So it would be interesting to see what happens to Christian McCaffrey's passing production, receiving production this year if Sam Darnold actually turns out to be a dud. But I still don't think that's enough because he did it last year with what? Teddy Bridgewater and who? I mean, that's really all they had. They had another guy that they were circulating in
Uh,
and out.
well, when Bridgewater got hurt, it was a rotation of is his name PJ Walker,
Mm-hmm.
and then Will Greer was also a backup, the old West Virginia quarterback, but he
Yep.
didn't see much time. I'm trying to think of there was one other quarterback that rotated in, but it was mainly PJ Walker, I think is his name. They're battling it out for backup now, but I'm interested to see. I think Sam Darnold can turn it around because Joe Brady is a good offensive coordinator. I think even if Sam Darnold is bad, you could see him be able to draw up plays to still get the ball in Christian McCaffrey's hands a whole lot.
Yeah, I don't think that there's enough there to flirt me away from taking CMC if I've got the number one overall pick in my draft. I think that's still the best pick. Dalvin Cook's a good one. Are we done with quarterbacks being taken high in the draft now? Is that era over? Unless you have, I mean, what stops you from taking a Patrick Mahomes number one overall?
Well, I mean, if I don't have the stats in front of me, but it's just if you look at Patrick Mahomes as good as he is, the difference in fantasy stats between him and taking a guy in like the 8th round, like if you get a Ryan Tannehill and you can probably get him in like the 7th or 8th round, then the difference there isn't that many points. So you can get so much better depth at receiver, running back, tight end, taking them early, and then get a guy like Tannehill. You can even get Rodgers probably in the third or fourth round. Still get quarterbacks like Rodgers, maybe Brady, depending on if you think he's still going to be at his elite status. So there's a lot of names out there that can still get you similar points.
Yeah, that's true. I think it also depends a lot on how many people in your league. I don't want to say know what they're doing because that can come across wrong, but you know what I mean. Like there are veteran fantasy football players that understand how it works, that understand draft positions and value, and then there are those that draft off of recognition alone, and that can really throw off a draft. I'll never forget there was a girl that we let play. And she swore up and down she knew football. She was ready to rock and roll. This was just 3 years ago, and she ended up with the number one overall pick, and she drafted Tom Brady with the number one pick in our 12-team fantasy league. She drafted Tom Brady, and then we get to Tom Brady, and she comes back around obviously because she's got a snake draft, and then the next two was like Wes Welker and Danny Woodhead.
So
And it's
just
like, oh, so you're just drafting Patriots.
yeah, I mean,
And
it's there's definitely one of those. I feel like you have those few fantasy football leagues that all have guys that know what they're doing, but I'm probably saying about 90% of fantasy football drafts have at least one person in it that's going to be like that.
So what do we feel about wide receivers this year? Because there's a lot. I feel like the stock for wide receivers has never been higher
Hmm.
than it is right now, and I think that that's a lot to do with the evolution of the passing game. Obviously, we're not talking about the wheel being reinvented here, but teams are spreading out and air raiding a lot more. You see that. I mean, that's what the Buccaneers did last year to beat the Kansas City Chiefs. That and an amazing defensive game plan. But all these teams that make it deep into the playoffs, you see there's a common theme on offense. They've got a very capable scat back type running back who can run the ball between the tackles if necessary, but can also bounce outside and run passing routes, giving you a fifth, sometimes a sixth passing option, right? You've got a lot going on, or a fourth and a fifth passing option, but you got a lot going on with receivers in the NFL. You talk about some young ones. You got Justin Jefferson, you got Jerry Judy, you've got my boy who I think is very overlooked down there in Atlanta, Alameda Zaccheaus. He's good. Calvin Ridley just came out not too long ago and took the stage by storm. The depth at wide receiver is so deep that I think that's probably the new running back, right?
Hmm.
So where do you stand on receivers? Are you going with a veteran like a Julio Jones or DeAndre Hopkins, a Sammy Watkins type guy? Are you going more for one of the younger guys, more of a Tyreek Hill? Are you going to take a tight end? I like to lump tight ends in there with the receivers because that's how they're used nowadays. Are you taking a Travis Kelce? Or are you taking a Zach Ertz? What are you doing for your receiver core?
So I know, at least in my opinion, my first 3 rounds, which I think your first 3 rounds are probably I mean, it is the most important because those are your 3 guys that are going to lead your team. I'm going 2 running backs and then I'm going a tight end because not in that order, but at somewhere in those first 3 rounds, I'm getting 2 running backs and 1 tight end. Because if you look at tight end, it's not that deep after you go with Travis Kelce, and then you have dude out in San Francisco. Why am I
George Kittle.
George Kittle, and then I think you can loop in or Vegas Raiders Darren Waller as kind of the top 3 in terms of stats. And then after that, there's a big drop off. So I think you have to grab one of those in the top 3, and then you worry
You're
about
not big on Zach Ertz.
So Zach Ertz, I think, is kind of the in-between tier. I think those 3 guys are still kind of a level above him. And then Zach Ertz, I slot in right below that. And then there's kind of a separation after him. But you're telling me if I get those 3 and then later on in the draft, I can get a guy. I mean, you can get any of the Steelers receivers, JuJu, Chase Claypool, Deontay Johnson, who, if Big Ben's healthy, I mean, one of those guys can get you a bunch of points. Cam Sutton out in Denver, he's ranked as the 30. He's in the early 30s in terms of receivers this year. You've got all the Cincinnati's receivers, Tyler Boyd, Jamar Chase coming out of LSU. There's a bunch of names down there. AJ Brown. I'm looking down through a list here.
Jamar Chase is not having a good preseason. The dude can't catch a cold right now.
So that is a problem because he did not play last year. He opted out for the season, correct?
Yeah.
And then, so he's having a tough preseason. He was thought of to possibly take over the number 1 spot over those other 2 guys, but I think Tyler Boyd has kind of cemented himself as the number 1 receiver there. So, but you can still get the basis on a point there was that there's a lot of names later on that I'm waiting to get some of these young guys that have a little bit more value late in the draft.
So you mentioned a name that was really intriguing to me, who I think needs to have a really good year to cement himself as being worth what he's been touted to be, and that is JuJu Smith-Schuster. So he had the breakout year, the year that Antonio Brown was there, right? And they were just a dual threat on both sides, which every team wants to have. And then Antonio Brown does Antonio Brown things, somehow finds his way on a Super Bowl championship team, and now he's got a ring. And in that year, oh my God, JuJu, we don't need Antonio Brown. It's JuJu. And JuJu, in my mind, laid an egg last year. he was now granted Ben Roethlisberger couldn't throw the ball 7 yards if he had to, and he also really couldn't stay upright, which is saying a lot for Big Ben to say that he had a really rough year staying upright because he is like a friggin' tree, right? So to say that Big Ben was having a hard time staying, that really tells you how woeful that offensive line was. But I mean, we're talking about misrun routes. We're talking about giving up on routes. He had some drops that were very uncharacteristic of him. He had a lot going on, and I think if you're a Pittsburgh fan and you watch Antonio Brown leave, and yes, the headache leaves with him, and there's been a long line of history in sports of athletes that we've put up with because of their production, right? And I think that last year, about halfway through that season, you're looking at JuJu and what he's doing, and you might be like, oh.
So I haven't paid much attention in the preseason to see where he's lined up at, but I think with new Steeler offensive coordinator Matt Canada, he's taking things over. I want to see JuJu more in the slot. I think part of the problem is he's not an outside receiver. I think he can be a possession guy over the middle if you draw him up in the correct scenarios, but he isn't a number one receiver, in my opinion. I think that you have other number one options that can play on the outside in Chase Claypool and Deontay Johnson. They can kind of go past guys. I think JuJu has to run better routes, be the guy that's across the middle, he's never going to be what Hines Ward was, but in terms of guys that put on a Pittsburgh jersey, I think that's the type of receiver that he sort of needs to emulate his game after if he wants to kind of get that money, because he went and signed a 1-year contract with the Steelers to try to come back and have another good season to go make a bunch of money. I think that's what he has to do and show that he's going to be a slot receiver that'll get you maybe 8 to 10 catches a game and not go for the big yardage plays.
Yeah, those are some good points there. I feel like you're right. He's not that type of guy. But with the dismissal, if you want to call it that, with the Antonio Brown departure, we'll leave it at that for what it is. He has to be that guy, right? Like, it's not going to be Claypool. It's not going to be the Devon. I'll never forget his. I always say Adams, but it's not Adams. But Devontae Johnson. There it is.
Yeah.
These are not guys that are going to be your number ones. I actually think that Chase Claypool, for what he was at Notre Dame, I don't think that translates because the NFL's bigger, right? And in the ACC, well, not really. Last year they were in the ACC, but in college football, even at the highest level, size is not at every position. It's easy to dwarf other players on the field. Right. I mean, look at what Jerry Jeudy was doing. Look at what Amari Cooper was doing. Look at what Julio Jones was doing. Calvin. These are guys that, yes, they were big, but then they got to the next level and they were still big. Right. I don't think I have that really Claypool, and I might be mistaken. I just feel like if there is going to be a true number one go-to receiver on that squad, it kind of has to be JuJu right now. I mean, that's the kind of faith that they've put in him. And it's more situational than it's talent-based. I don't know that it's fair that fan base and that organization put that onus on him, right? And maybe we're just victim of circumstance, and we're always used to teams having a number one go-to guy, where now it's almost like you see a lot of – I look at the Chiefs, right? They almost work in receiver pods. I think back to Calipari when he had the platoon system. He had basically – 10 dudes who could start on any team in the nation, and he had them all on his squad. So he would substitute them in every 10 minutes. You got 5 new guys coming in, right? A lot of these teams work in wide receiver pods. So maybe that's what Pittsburgh has done. Maybe that's what they've assembled over there. And they've got a pod of receivers with Devontae, and they've got Claypool, and they've got JuJu. They've also got Vance McDonald, who's a very overrated tight end, in my opinion. So, I mean, they've got a good setup. Maybe we're just putting too much pressure on JuJu, and that's why he seemed to have a down year.
Yeah, I can agree with that, because I think you can probably find 10 teams in the league right now that are kind of going wide receiver by committee. They're going for more of a depth aspect than really a guy. Because I mean, all three of those guys, they can all be your number one at some point in the season. So I think there is a little too much pressure on him. He kind of puts it on himself too because of all the off the field social media stuff. But we'll see what happens. I just hope that Big Ben comes back strong and can get the ball to him.
Yeah, I don't think you got to worry about anything with Big Ben being weak. Even even at his weakest, he's stronger than most quarterbacks in the NFL, and he's just going to be a problem. I mean, he always has been. He will continue to be so until he decides to hang it up. I can't believe he's still playing, to be quite honest.
Yeah.
But let's talk about something that I am sure of, and that is the Washington football team. Have you had an opportunity to watch any of their games?
I have not. I have kind of put the preseason kind of on the back burners here and waiting for week one to really catch up on some of these teams.
Well, that's fine because the Fighting Fitzmagics will be coming to a TV near you soon, JT. I'm sure of it. I am very, very impressed. It's as a Washington fan in any sport, really, you have to have cautious optimism. You can't really take what should be seemingly a good situation and allow yourself to get excited, because if being a Washington fan has taught me anything, they're doing that just so they can intentionally crush you later, right? But I'm seeing something in our offense with Fitzmagic back there. I see dudes that have not looked like good receivers look better. I see balls getting delivered faster. I see holes in defenses being thrown to. I see receivers being thrown open. Terry McLaurin is a big problem if you're an opposing defense. And then you add in Adam Humphries and Curtis Samuel with some speed or in the middle. No one's worried about the Giants, Pat. No one's worried. The only thing people are worried about with the Giants is if Saquon's going to smash their head with his quads. No one cares. But congratulations on drafting another 15 years of Eli Manning and Daniel Jones. Enjoy that mediocrity. I'm very excited about what they have, especially with having the entire defense back, right? There's a lot to be excited about. You got Logan Thomas, who is one of the most amazing stories that's ever come across my eyes as far as position change. Right. I know it happens all the time in the NFL because you kind of have to adapt to keep your job. But to be your entire life as a quarterback, to get drafted as a quarterback, to play in 3 different franchises as a quarterback, and then be saying, hey, we've got a spot open at tight end and be as effective as he's been. That's going to be another fun story to watch develop this year. This is a football season for me that has a lot more hype than I have ever had surrounding me. Other than probably the RG3 year, that was probably the most exciting football year of my life. UVA, I believe, was like 7-5 that year, went to a bowl game and won. But RG3 took the league by storm. NFL Rookie of the Year, Offensive Player of the Year, all that stuff. And if it wasn't for Elodie Nada, we would probably have a Super Bowl that year. Honestly, I mean, Patrick Mahomes is definitely better. But what he did to the NFL that year in 2010 is very similar to what Patrick Mahomes has done early in his career.
Yeah, I mean, that might be the greatest. Was that his rookie year or the second year that he did that?
It was his rookie year.
So the 2-year run of his senior year of college and that rookie year in the NFL, that's an insane run for anybody.
He put up stupid numbers at Baylor. I mean, stupid numbers. So
I mean, it was video game stuff. I still remember going and playing that game, the NCAA football game, and you just wanted to be Baylor just to play one season with him before he graduated.
Yeah, I will never forget. At the time, I was playing a lot of travel softball, and one of my best friends, Austin, we made a bet at batting practice on the softball fields that RG3 would have a longer career than Andrew Luck because they got drafted. That was the big thing. Who were the Colts going to take, right? If you knew anything about anything, you knew there was no way they were taking RG3. So Washington trades the house to go to number 2 to make sure they get RG3. And for a while there, it looked really good. If you would have told me at that point in time that come 2016 2017, neither one of RG3 or Andrew Luck would still be in the league, I wouldn't have believed you. You couldn't have paid me any amount of money to believe you,
Yeah.
right? And especially if you were going to tell me that one was going to be because of retirement, right? So I guess that was a weird flex way for me to say, I won that bet, Austin. I want my money because RG3 is still in the league and
RG3
Andrew
still
Luck
is in the league.
retired. But I mean, you know what I'm saying? With how much, just imagine that going back in 2010 and all the hype that came with that draft around Andrew Luck and RG3. And there were some other great ones in there, but I feel like RG3 and Andrew Luck kind of overshadow the rest of that draft.
Mm-hmm.
If you were to say, hey, or what was it, 2012? It was 2012. If I were to tell you, hey, in 7 years, at the start of the 2021 NFL season, RG3 will be a third string quarterback for the Baltimore Ravens, and Andrew Luck will be 3 years removed from retirement. Would you believe it?
No. I mean, even like when did Luck get hurt? So that was the year
2014, 2015.
So, I mean, even at that point, if you would have told me that Luck would have been retired at that point, like it was a shock in the preseason game when it got announced. He was on the field, standing on the sidelines, and all the fans, like it got leaked somehow. So, like in the middle of the game, they started booing because Luck was down there.
How wild was that?
Yeah, that's a wild time to think. Like there was just people on their phones finding out that he was retired and booing him while he's standing on the sidelines.
Yeah. Speaking of wild, there's another team that I want to get to, courtesy of Jerry Nixon Jr. If y'all don't know who that is, he's the godfather himself of the podcast, the Juicebox Pod. If you haven't checked them out, they're great friends of ours. Give them a listen. They're not sports related. So even though I believe there's no such thing as too much sports, they are not sports related. They talk about everything but. And we were talking a little bit earlier today, and he wants to talk about the Broncos. He says in another world, in another universe, the Broncos just scored another touchdown. Of course, he's referencing the 30-3 beatdown they put on the Seattle Seahawks over the weekend. So I wanted to talk a little Denver Broncos because, look, I think I've always been a big Teddy Bridgewater fan, okay? When you're married, you have to make some sacrifices. And one of the sacrifices I had to make was following Louisville sports because my wife's family is from Louisville. Her dad is deep into Louisville sports, loves the Cardinals over there. So every year that UVA played Louisville, we went to the football game. So I actually got to see the debut of Lamar Jackson. I was at the game where he came in second string at Scott Stadium to recover for whoever the guy was that got hurt. And we also got to watch Teddy Bridgewater. And watching Teddy Bridgewater in person, you can tell that he's an NFL quarterback. I think that he has just been dealt a very bad hand in the NFL, right? He gets drafted by, was it the Vikings?
Yes.
He gets drafted by the Vikings, and they have whatever his name was that got traded. I'm blanking on who it was right now. That's who they traded for Kirk Cousins.
You keep talking. I'll look it up.
Yeah, I can't remember who it was, but oh my God, it's on the tip of my tongue. It's going to drive me absolutely bonkers. But he's there, right? And he does get his shot, but it's not really a fair one. And then he gets traded to Carolina, right? Isn't that where he went right after Minnesota? He went to Carolina.
No, he went to New Orleans.
And he goes to New Orleans. And look, when he got traded to New Orleans, I was on it. Yes, the successor to Drew Brees is here. He is wearing the fleur-de-lis. He is gold and black, and it's Teddy Bridgewater. And I'm sitting here. I'm ready to place future bets on the Saints for 6-7 years from now. And then they shaft him in New Orleans. Then he gets traded to Carolina.
Do you remember in the preseason, the last year that he was with the Vikings, all you heard out of camp was how good he was going to change the Vikings that year because he was looking amazing. And then I think it was in practice, like in the third week of preseason, he got hit or he got awkwardly hit and ended up tearing his ACL. And it was they were devastated because that was gonna be the Vikings' year. So yeah, that was even
Yeah.
before he got ever traded to either of those spots. But keep going.
So, but then he goes over to Carolina, and that experiment was just crap.
Mm-hmm.
And so now here he is. Here he is competing for the job, which I'm going to be completely honest with you, should not be a competition at all. But he's competing with Drew Lock.
Mm-hmm.
Teddy Bridgewater is going to win that job. Teddy Bridgewater has a cannon. Teddy Bridgewater has legs. Teddy
Yep.
Bridgewater can move and extend a pocket and extend plays. Teddy Bridgewater is an exciting quarterback, but he has not really had a lot of talent around him to do Teddy Bridgewater things. So I'm going to read you off right now. They've got Melvin Gordon, Cortland Sutton, Jerry Jeudy, KJ Hamler, and Noah Fant. Those are his weapons this year. Noah Fant took the league by storm last year, right? Amazing tight end, wide receiver type build, but can get down and block, can get in protection if he needs to. Then you got, everyone knows about Cortland Sutton from last year. Jerry Jeudy is a stud, has been, will continue to be. And then you've got Melvin Gordon coming out of the backfield. And we've got, there he is.
You've got
Royce Freeman from Oregon.
Yep.
Yeah. He had a great showing this past weekend as well. So you've got running backs. It's hard to say that the the Broncos won't have a good running back because they've got 19 on their depth chart right now. Like they're gonna have a running back at some point do some good things. But between Melvin Gordon and Royce Freeman, that's a good 1-2 punch. You know what? I'm right there with Jake, man. AFC West has been put on notice by Sports with BJ. I love the Denver Broncos this year. I love Teddy Bridgewater getting his opportunity, and I love the fact that I believe he's going to make the most of it.
Yeah, I'm right there with you. That defense always scares me, no matter what, with Von Miller there and the rest of those dudes. That front seven is so scary. Even if Teddy's just mediocre, like that defense is going to keep them in games. So, yeah, I'm right there with you. Everything you said, you knocked out every point. So,
And you mentioned the defense, man. There's some ballers. They got Bradley Chubb. They got Dramont Jones. They got Von Miller. They got Kyle Fuller. They got Ronald Darp. Like, why are we not talking about the Broncos? You know why we're not talking about the Broncos? Because they're still listing Drew Lock as their starting quarterback. And as long as Drew Lock is your starting quarterback, no one's afraid of you. No one cares. No one cares. But you give Teddy Bridgewater that ball, and I'm telling you, man, that Denver Broncos team can be scary. They're all young, well, except for Von Miller. He's, 80 now? But
he's still the same player he was when he was 25.
Absolutely. He is not aged, right? He'll be the Tom Brady of defense. That dude does not get older. Him and James Harrison.
So I have a hypothetical that if you want to transition into the college side I heard today, and I wanted to get your thought on it. I actually have a couple here, okay, if you want to jump into it.
Yeah, let's go.
So for this upcoming season, we already talked on Team Total Tuesday. If you want to go back and listen to our ACC Team Total, you got into Virginia, gave us every reason why we should be excited about UVA football this year.
They added another reason today.
What was that?
So Lavelle Davis had a really bad knee injury in spring camp or summer camp, and he was on the field in full pads today, ready to rock and roll.
Oh, okay. Then, yeah, that increases your chances. But so you get him back. The question is, the hypothetical question, if you could add one UVA player of all time to this roster, which one do you think would be most beneficial in helping your team get to an ACC championship game?
On just the team period?
Yeah, so on this team, on the 2021 UVA football team, you can add any player that's ever played for UVA to help this team out. Who are you going with? Well, I'll give you. This is off the top, so I'll give you some time to think about it.
I've got 4 names going through my head right now already.
Oh, really?
And so that would be number 1 for me would be Aaron Brooks. Aaron Brooks, the biggest question mark I think we have is what are we going to get out of Brennan Armstrong, right? If he can play the quarterback position the way he needs to, being mobile and making good decisions passing, I think this offense, the sky's the limit. The issue with him last year, and I'm not afraid to say it, people disagree with me all the time, but I know what I saw with my eyes. The dude's first instinct was first option, tuck and run. That was it. He ran. He was our team's leading rusher. Can't have that.
Yeah.
I think of Tiki Barber, someone who is going to get you 3 to 4 yards in a cloud of dust, right? We could use that with the flying offense style that we have. Our running backs tend to be kind of on the smaller side. Excuse me, a little bit on the smaller side. So Tiki Barber, I would love and give anything to have Heath Miller back at tight end. Would love to have Heath Miller back at tight end, but I think where the biggest issue for us is going to come this year is probably going to be in the intermediate secondary with our linebackers. So I'm actually gonna keep everybody on our roster right now, and I'm gonna add Derek Brooks. I'm gonna bring him back.
Okay. I
Mr.
like that.
Super Bowl champion. He was the middle linebacker for one of the greatest defenses of all time, that 2000 Buccaneers Tampa Bay defense. And he was a hell of a ball player at UVA. So I think I would probably go with Derek Brooks.
Okay. Yeah, I'm kind of right there with you. There's a lot of guys when I thought about it for West Virginia about who I would add. There's a lot of receivers that have come through, especially in the last couple of years under Dana Holgorsen. There's obviously the old school. We could go back to Steve Slayton and Pat White at a quarterback or a running back, but we've got Letty White that's going to be up there, top 3 running backs in the Big 12. So I actually went over to the defensive side, and my final decision was the cornerback position. We lost a lot the last couple of years. When Neil Brown came in, there was a ton of Dana Holgorsen players that transferred out, a few that have transferred out this past year. Tyke Smith at safety, but then Drayshawn Miller at corner. I'm going with Pac-Man Jones. We need a corner in the Big 12. You need a shutdown corner that can take on teams' number 1 receivers. We have Jackie Matthews. He's going to be good, but I think he's more of a 2 kind of guy. And then Nick Troy Fortune, and drawing a blank on who the transfer was from Eastern Illinois. But there's another corner there. There's a lot of good 2nd, 3rd, 4th corner options, but Pac-Man, man, he was a game changer, could do it all. We haven't had a return man for kicks and punts in a long time, so he could also change the special teams game. And at the end of the day, I also wanted to bring him up because he's fighting in a boxing match this weekend. So
yes, true.
Check that out. That's going to be a fun time too, to see what he does.
He was so fun to watch. I loved him at West Virginia. He was electrifying, but I feel like we get a lot of those. For me, and it might be a little home-cooked bias, but the most electrifying player I was able to watch and cognizantly, take in would have been Percy Harvin. He was just, I didn't get to see Woodson play, right?
Yeah.
But when I think of Pac-Man Jones, I actually don't think of West Virginia. I think of him flying around in that Bengal striped helmet, knocking people out while he was returning punts, right? But can we say hands down the best return man of all time is Devin Hester? Like, is that even an argument?
No, I think easily. There's not I don't even know who would be number 2.
Number 2, it could be Woodson. It could be.
But Devin Hester, he kind of completely changed the game in terms of people trying to avoid even kicking it to him, just because he was going to run it back for a touchdown more times than not.
Yeah, that's true. There's only a handful of people in the history you do not kick to, right? And the first one that everyone's going to come to mind is going to be Devin Hester.
Yep.
You don't. Kickers lost jobs. Like, think about that. He got people fired because he returned kicks. That's insane to me. So I got one more thing I wanted to get to tonight. It's about to be October, which means it's about to be the Fall Classic. Who do we got? And we'll just keep it real simple. Who do you got coming out into the World Series?
Who? So I mean, the team that no one wants to see right now is the Yankees. I mean, they've been the way those bats are moving. I said it a little bit on Brood Bets on Saturday. I mean, Yankees -1.5 is just about the safest bet out there right now.
Mm-hmm.
So that pitching still bothers me. I think some of those guys have caught lightning in a bottle. It's going to run out eventually. You look at some of the other teams in the league. Can San Francisco, who has the best record in all of baseball, and they've really had it all season long, can those guys, that pitching staff with the defensive mentality and just a lot of consistent hitters, not really a lot of power there, can they keep it up? If the Dodgers have their full pitching rotation, I'm still going with them. They're sitting at the number one spot in the NL wildcard right now. So I think with Walker Buehler, Trevor Bauer, who knows what's going on there, and just the plethora of guys that they have to choose from, and kind of the weaknesses that I see in the rest of the National League teams, I think they're going to make it through.
Yeah. I think so. You're going Dodgers, Yankees?
So I think Dodgers,
Giants, Yankees.
So I like the Giants, but I have question marks on whether some of those guys. I mean, they've proven it to this point, 124 games in, that they are the real deal. But still, when you're trusting on Kevin Gausman and some of these guys that have played, Desclafini, guys that have been around for a long time, and this is just like a year like any other for them. They haven't played like this before. When it comes down to October, you really need guys that have experience playing in those types of ball games. So I'm going with Dodgers for the experience, the Yankees because of their bats, and so Yankees Dodgers World Series.
Yeah, I like that. I'm with you on the Giants and the question marks, but I mean, they've played all the teams, right?
Mm-hmm.
And they still have the best record in baseball. So just to keep it interesting, I'll take Giants. In the American League, man, it's.
I mean, you look at it here. You got Tampa, Houston, and Chicago White Sox leading the division. The Yankees are number one wild card spot, but they've been a roller coaster all season. Boston is on a horrific run. They've been losing games left and right, and they're sitting in the second wild card spot. And then you have the Oakland Athletics sitting a game and a half out. Seattle Mariners right there. Like, none of those teams really scare you.
No, if I had to go someone other than the Yankees, I'd probably go with the team that's been the most consistent all year in that division, and that would be the White Sox, right?
Mm-hmm.
I mean, the White Sox, the product from day one. There's been some really, really good highs, and there's also been lows, but I feel like if you took the meter of that low and that high and gapped it, I feel like that gap is smaller than any other team in the. I mean, we were talking for a while there. I mean, I'll never forget the time that we had 2 cream 1 sugar Pat on Brood Bets in the morning, and we're talking how the Yankees need to just clean house and start over, right? Mm-hmm. I mean, it was bad. And now they go and they get Chris Bryant. They go make some moves for some people that can actually get on base instead of just hit the ball over the fence. And Oh, look what happens. Aaron Judge, his RBIs are going up. Juan Carlos Stanton, his RBI, because people are on base, right? So the Yankees are the Yankees. They're going to be able to buy their way out of any problem, but you worry about the continuity there. So I'll go with the consistency of the White Sox. I do think that if you said who has the best chance against the Dodgers, it probably would be the Astros, but I just refuse to wish any goodwill upon them.
Yeah.
I refuse.
Yeah, that's something that I just don't want to see.
Yeah, so I'll go Giants and White Sox right now.
Okay.
Like that. So we got football coming up this weekend. It's going to be exciting. Make sure y'all keep an eye out on our social. We've got a lot of fun stuff. We're going into year 2 here. Year 2 of the podcast with football season coming up. And there's going to be a lot more interaction. There's going to be a lot more clips. There's going to be a lot more things for you to hear our voice and hear our opinions without having to watch an entire hour-long episode or however long we decide to be. We appreciate the ones that have stayed around. We appreciate the new ones that have come. Thank you all so much for your support. We can't wait to go through football season with y'all. Please do not be afraid to interact. Send us messages, comment on our posts. We don't do this to hear ourselves talk, right? If we did that, we would just talk to our girlfriends and our wives. But we do this to have an engaging
They don't want
conversation.
that. They don't want us to talk to them that much.
Absolutely not. So just interact with us. And of course, before anything and everything, please hit up our sponsors. Make sure you check out the Skinny Dip. Make sure you check out Pale Horse Coffee. Make sure you check out Big Ugly Brewing. Make sure you check out all these places. These are all locally owned establishments that would love your support. Promo code BrewedBets for 10% off at Pale Horse Coffee. Promo code Sports with BJ at Skinny Dip. 3 locations, Kempsville, Ghent, and Hanbury. 10% off there. No promo code for Big Ugly Brewing, but I promise you, if you visit, you won't be disappointed. Thank you for the support. We look forward to football season. We'll catch you next time on Sports with BJ.